Hi everyone, welcome along. Today we are going to go through some of the changes to the payroll service and provide you with some information related to benefit in kind and how these could help you to retain your workforce in light of the ongoing recruitment issues that many firms are currently facing. We'll also have a bit of a BrightPay workshop and a refresher, so we'll be looking at some of the things that you may be familiar with and maybe some new features that you are not. This is hosted today by myself and MAP Payroll Team, and I'll just quickly go through the agenda. So we're going to start by introducing ourselves, and then we'll go through the employee benefits section. Then we'll have a look at the updates to our pension service. We've got some changes in the team, so we thought we'd have a look at this vital part again, just so that we can provide you with more support. As part of that, I'll be going through automatic re-enrollment duties, and then we'll have our BrightPay refresher, followed by a Q&A at the end. So, your new payroll team. My name is Stephen, I'm the payroll manager. I've been doing payroll for about 5 years. I've recently joined MAP. I started in August, and I'm here to help manage the service and also to run your payrolls with you. My colleague is Emma, and she's going to do a little introduction for herself now.
Hi, I'm Emma, and I've worked in accounts literally since I left school. I was kind of doing like a probably the finance partner, client accountant sort of role previously before moving into payroll about 2 years ago. I was previously payroll manager somewhere else, but I moved to MAP because the culture and just the whole MAP way of doing things really appealed to me. You've probably all spoke to me on emails at some point since I started back in July. So yeah.
Thank you, Emma. So we do have direct emails. Mine is stephen.quayle@wearemap and Emma's is emma@wearemap. But please send your payroll queries and questions through to the main payroll inbox. We both have access, we check it really regularly, and we always sign off when we're sending from there so you know who you're talking to. So firstly, before we get started properly with the benefits, I've just got a quick technical update. So there is an email that we were sending out automatically through one of our pieces of software that has now been turned off. So you won't get the reminder 14 days before your payroll date anymore, but you will still get the notifications coming through from the payroll entry requests and also from the payroll approval requests. We just felt like it was one too many emails for you to receive a month, and it was confusing some clients' spam filters. So we thought we'd get rid of that part of the process because it's not as necessary anymore as it was when we first moved to BrightPay. But if you would like any updates, we can arrange orientation meetings for any new staff that will be dealing with payroll, or if you'd just like a catch-up meeting, just pop us an email to the payroll inbox and we'll be more than happy to get something arranged so that we can get you comfortable and familiar with BrightPay. So starting off with benefits, with the way recruitment's going currently and with the fact that we've got historically low levels of unemployment in the country, anything that you can do to improve the value of your role to any potential new recruits and also to improve the value of your role for your current and existing staff is something that you should be looking to consider should you be able to afford to do so. Now, benefits in kind of scares a lot of people, but it's actually relatively straightforward so long as you just understand the tax rules and the implications for it. Generally speaking, the costs of employee benefits are offset against the costs of retraining staff. So you really have to look at how much your turnover is costing you or potentially could cost you if you were to lose one of your most high performing team members versus the cost of the benefit and how much that costs the business in comparison. Employees now have very different priorities when looking for work. The pandemic's opened everyone's eyes to what is and isn't possible, and people are valuing their time a lot more these days. So it definitely pays to give some kind of incentive alongside the actual salary contract and the culture that you are providing for your employees. Some are non-taxable and they can be put in place pretty quickly. And the benefit as a whole is it also demonstrates that you are taking your responsibilities as an employer seriously, and it adds a sense of permanence to your roles. It indicates to your staff that you're in it for the long term. So there are three main types of benefits in kind. There are taxable benefits, there are non-taxable benefits, and then there are the kind of gifts and expenses. So taxable benefits are things like health insurance, gym membership, electric car, subscriptions to services, or non-work related training. These are all things that are seen by the taxman as having a cash value to employees and therefore a value that should be taxed. Non-taxable benefits are all related to statutory things. So you've got pension payments. Any additional payments you make into pensions are non-taxable from an employer's perspective. The working from home allowance, which is something that might be worth bearing in mind with the cost of living crisis that's currently going on. And also if it's work-related training, so it's training specifically related to their role, it's also non-taxable. For gifts and expenses, it's things like Christmas parties, work socials, travel expenses, things that if you pass the tax on to your employees, it kind of encourages low uptake. So that's why it's in a separate category. And the three categories are defined by how you tell the taxman, or whether you even need to tell the taxman. Any taxable benefits must be on a P11D or payrolled. Any benefit in kind that's not considered trivial, it can either be P11D and P11DB. You can payroll your benefits, which means that only one of those forms needs to be completed, and it's much, much easier. Or you can submit through a PAYE settlement agreement. All three of these are services that we can help you with, although we won't be able to payroll anything until the start of the new tax year. Both P11Ds and PSAs, the tax kind of lags behind, so it follows the year. So anything that is provided for your employees this year will be paid for next year, essentially. The benefits of payroll versus P11D is that your payrolled benefits are calculated month to month, so it's much easier for your employees to actually see the tax, and they don't have to think ahead to next year and think, oh, what's my tax code going to be? How much is going to be taken away? It's much quicker to prepare for you, and it's easier to prepare for us. So it is definitely something to consider, maybe switching in the new year. When switching, there's something to bear in mind, which is that in the first year after you switch, you do actually pay kind of double tax. You pay last year's tax plus the tax for this year. So do bear that in mind if you are considering it. And you will need to discuss that with your employees before you make the switch, just so that they're aware of any potential implications for their salaries. But we can provide a forecast of how this could potentially affect you if that is something that you are interested in. Just worth mentioning as well, employer national insurance contributions on benefits in kind are often cheaper than just simply giving employees a cash benefit like a bonus. So the value of the benefits is often quite low per head compared to just simply giving someone a pay rise. If you payroll benefits, our software will automatically generate any forms that are needed at the end of the year. If not, we do need to do a bit of work to prepare it, but we're more than happy to do so if you're on our P11D service, which will be coming under payroll from next year. Something that we've had quite a few queries about lately is about putting together a salary sacrifice vehicle scheme, particularly for electric vehicles. Sorry, the payroll side of salary sacrifice schemes is often overlooked. This is something that you need to make sure you consider. So you need to make sure that if you are doing a salary sacrifice, you need to have any salary sacrifice must not bring your employees' wages below national minimum wage. Any salary sacrifice is represented on a payslip. Any impact on the value of pension contributions is well communicated, and any tax in addition to the sacrifice payment is also well communicated. If you take on a car in the middle of the year, you'll also need to submit a P11D and a P46 car for any new benefit that starts. Now, the reason why this is overlooked is because a lot of the publications around getting EV vehicles kind of focus on the employer side, but you do need to actually consider what the impact will be on the employee beyond just how much per month for hire purchase is going to cost them. This is something that we can help you with. but it is something that you definitely need to consider when you are looking at potentially putting one of these in place. So as simply as we possibly can, the value of the sacrifice is the monthly cost of the vehicle's purchase plus the tax due. So tax is calculated on the basis of the list price. So it's list price minus VAT and registration fee multiplied by the benefit in kind rate, which depends on what kind of vehicle it is. Currently for electric vehicles, it's very low for this year, it's just 2%. But for petrol vehicles, it increases depending on their carbon emissions. The tax is then calculated and the figure remains at the rate at which your employee currently pays tax. It's an annual figure which then gets split out over the year. So for trivial and not so trivial benefits, so a trivial benefit, this is related to the gifts and expenses part. Any trivial benefit costs you less than £50 per head to provide. It's not cash or a cash voucher. It's not considered a reward for employees' work performance or is not in the terms of their contract. A trivial benefit has to meet all of the criteria above, and you don't have to pay tax or national insurance or inform Hmrc. If a benefit ticks more than one of the above criteria but doesn't tick them all, then it can potentially be processed via a PSA, which is a PAY settlement agreement, to avoid passing the tax burden on to staff. It's definitely worth taking the tax burden on for these as a business, as passing the costs on to the employee kind of just encourages low participation, which is kind of counter to why you want to do these things and have socials and do team building. If you can keep the cost below the trivial threshold, then that's good. It means that you don't have to tell the tax man, but definitely keep your receipts because that's just good accounting. But if you feel like you want to make a bigger impression and help your team form bonds, then don't be afraid to spend a little bit more and have a conversation with us about the PSA agreements. We can get them in place. So the tax due for PSAs is actually a lot more generous. So that lags behind the tax year quite a lot. It's due in the October following the close of the tax year. So this year's Christmas party, you essentially pay for the tax burden next year in October. So you've got plenty of time to get things arranged. If you would like to talk to us about trivial benefits or PSA agreements, again, feel free to just pop us an email into the inbox and we'll be more than happy to have that conversation and look towards working with you for next tax year. If you've currently got a PSA agreement with us, we are just waiting for a few more agreement numbers from Hmrc, but we are chasing them and we will make sure we meet the deadlines this month. So pension-related benefits, this is often a really good place to start if you're looking at putting a benefits package together, because it's something that you legally have to provide anyway, and it's something that you can put in place literally from your next payroll, and you don't have to bother with telling the taxman about it. So there are a few ways you could do this. You could opt to do employer-only contributions, which is where you pay both the employee rate and the employer rate as a lump sum into the pension scheme, and the employee essentially doesn't pay anything, but they still get the full value as if they did. If there are any bonuses coming up, you can pay part of that bonus into the pension contributions, which again is completely tax-free. And you can also choose to pay a higher rate into your pension scheme. So you can choose to pay more than the legal minimum or pay a fixed amount per month. Again, this is very easy to implement and can be implemented pretty much straight away. Since you have to have a pension scheme for your staff, it's a really great place to start, as I mentioned. And it also demonstrates clearly that you're not just looking at the current working life, you're also thinking about the future and what you can do to help, especially for the younger staff, because I'll be honest, our schemes aren't really worth that much at the minute. And any little helps really when it looks towards the long term. I mentioned earlier working from home payments. So the reason why we are bringing this up is because the working from home tax allowance has very recently changed. It's now much more difficult to qualify and claim the tax allowance, and the rules are a little bit odd and they feel very construction industry. In order to qualify for the working from home allowance, you either need to not have an office at all, or you need to be contractually obligated to work far enough away from your office that you have to work in your home but you also have to live far enough away from your office to qualify. So getting the tax allowance now is a much more difficult prospect. If your employees have already got it, that's fine, just leave it for now. But it looks like next year it's only going to get even more strict. It's something the government seem to want to stop paying out, but they are allowing working from home payments to continue. So what this is you just pay a small amount per month to your employees. It's non-taxable, doesn't need to be declared, so long as it's only £26 per month, which doesn't go very far, but it still helps towards the cost of working from home, gas, electric, etc. You can choose to pay more, but if you do pay more, then your employees will pay tax on every pound above the cap. So if you chose to pay £27, for example, they pay tax on that one extra pound. We can very easily process these payments through payroll, and because it is something that doesn't really require any prior declarations, we can literally put this in place from your next payroll entry if you wish to. It's definitely something that you should be considering if you can afford to do so, because as employees are working from home and the costs are increasing, the squeeze is starting to come in for a lot of people. Also, just on that, from an employee perspective, it's much better to get the payment because you actually get the full value of the allowance rather than the tax code, because it doesn't always necessarily pull through in the way that you might be expecting. So just here, I've got a quick poll just to see how we can get on with this one. So my apologies, it's my first time launching a poll. So would you consider a greater benefits package for your staff, just based on what we discussed today and whether or not you already have one in place? Okay, I'm just gonna let the last few answers come through. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, guys. So we do have quite a good amount of interest there. So if you'd like to start a conversation with us and your client accountant here at MAP to actually talk through the ways we can get started, please do get in touch. This is something that we can get in place either to start as soon as possible or to start with the new tax year. It definitely does have a benefit. Personally speaking, I've benefited from benefits packages in my previous employer and in this one. My previous employer offered health insurance, which was really, really useful, particularly towards the end of the pandemic when I actually accessed it to just get a bit of counselling. It was a really tough couple of years, and I just thought, let me just go and have a tune up, get everything sorted, make sure I'm ready and willing to work in 2021. And because it was paid through my employer, it was much easier for me to just actually get that arranged. I didn't have to worry about budgeting for it or trying to find the money. It was just a case of like, no, I can just go, got my 10 sessions, I can sort my head out a bit for the year ahead. And it definitely was a massive, massive help, especially after the pandemic and everything that went on there. So it is something that I personally benefited from, and it is something that your employees will also enjoy in the longer term. So yes, please get in touch with us and we'll be more than happy to help you start that conversation. So now on to the fun bit. So pensions. We have had a change of staff in the team, and with that comes a lot more experience, a lot of different experiences when it comes to dealing with pension providers, the regulator, and helping you out with your pensions duties. So we have looked at our pension service and we just kind of made things a bit clearer, because before they were kind of, you knew that we were taking care of it, but we wanted to make sure you knew exactly what we were doing and what we were working to. So we've looked at the service and we would like to talk to you about that today. So our goal is for you to be pensions confident. We want you to be able to feel like you can keep on top of your duties with help from us, regardless of whether or not you actually use our pension service. There are certain things that we will always make sure that we do. But firstly, to be pension confident, for us, it's all about understanding your duties as an employer. And even though that word gets bandied around a lot, it is fairly straightforward. Your duties, there's only 4 of them. They do cover a various different set of actions, but you just need to start off with your declarations. So this is just making sure that ensure you've declared the correct information to the pensions regulator. Information, so have you made sure that you've informed your employees of their rights? Assessment, so have you ensured that your employees' earnings have been assessed correctly with every pay run, and also have they just been assessed correctly, period? And membership, so just making sure that all of your opt-outs and opt-ins are in order with your scheme. So these duties are very straightforward. It's just literally a case of making sure that you hit the beats and you're always on time with what you need to do. The letters that you get from the regulator have a very severe language that they use, which is quite often off-putting or can be quite worrying. But in general, it is very, very straightforward to get these things done. You just need to make sure that they're done on time or that you've got the appropriate support in place. Now, this may have come back to the forefront because of your automatic enrolment. So many of you will be due for your first automatic re-enrolment. You might have received a letter already from the pensions regulator. Now, it's a bit of a misnomer. There's nothing really automatic about the process at all. It just refers to the fact that any employees who've opted out in previous years must be opted back in automatically. But there are still actions that you need to take. Your automatic enrolment duties have to be completed every 3 years. This is calculated from your duty start date. We can help you with this. We can just do it for you for a one-time fee, or we can just track it automatically as part of our enhanced filing service. If you are doing the filing yourself, you can request the information you require, and we'll prepare a report from your BrightPay account and make sure that's uploaded to your Connect portal. If you do pay us to help you out with this, we'll take full responsibility for all the actions and any other queries that are raised. It's quite unusual, but sometimes the regulator does come back if they just want some clarification on some points. So if you've paid us to do your re-enrolment, we'll make sure that we follow up and answer any of those queries as well. So what are the services? So firstly, we have our filing only service. This is just for filing, but we will be doing 3 very important things which I've highlighted in red, and the context of these depends on whether or not you're actually on the filing service. So we will always assess your earnings for every single pay run. We will always check for opt-outs with every single pay run, and we will always make sure that your payroll has the correct pension contributions and rates displayed on the payslips. If you use the filing service, you won't have to have very much input at all with these because we'll go and automatically find this information. We'll log on, we'll check. If you do not use our service, we'll still do this, but we'll be asking you these questions in the entry requests because it is important that we have this information. So when we send out your entry, we'll be asking you to check for any opt-outs if you don't choose to use our pension service. And similarly, we'll be asking you to make sure we're always updated of any pension contribution rates. These are the legal requirements for payroll, which we will always do. But if you do choose the filing service, we'll make sure that it's a much easier and smoother process because you won't have to think about it at all. As it is the filing service, we'll also be filing pensions earnings with a valid pension scheme. We'll be providing support via reporting with BrightPay and BrightPay Connect. We'll be making sure that your payment details are correct, informing you of any liabilities due. If we're in your pension provider and we spot that there's some outstanding balances, we'll also make sure that you're regularly updated with that to make sure that you are aware that there are extra payments to be made. And we'll also help with any other tasks arising from the legal requirements. Now, what this means is your contract that you have with your employee is very important, as is any written agreement you have with your employee. So if you have agreed to do a salary sacrifice, or if someone has opted in or opted out in writing, even if they're not a qualifying earner, we will make sure that whatever you've agreed with your employee for pensions is actioned through payroll to the best of our ability. Obviously, don't promise impossible things, but if we do spot that you have, we'll come back to you and be like, actually, you can't do that, but here's the closest possible thing that you can do. That's part of our filing service, and we'll absolutely be happy to help with that. The enhanced service. So this one is more keyed towards automatic enrolment and support. So we'll give you full support with automatic enrolment duties. What this means is we will track your duty start dates, we'll track all of your duties dates, and we'll just complete the automatic enrolment actions without you ever having to come to us and mention it. You might still get letters. The pensions regulator is very fond of sending a good letter. You can actually log into the regulator and choose to receive these via email if you prefer, but you will get a lot of emails. But we will be making sure that all the actions are completed within the deadlines. We'll also be providing support with the pensions regulator, including any appeals. So we've got quite a good breadth of experience in dealing with the regulator, not because previous clients were particularly naughty, it's just that's just how automatic enrolment came in. All of the new letters that came out were a pleasant surprise, so we are quite good at dealing with them, talking to them and knowing which departments we need to speak to. We're also good at cutting through the jargon, which is why we'll also provide support with mediation between the pensions regulator and pension providers. So sometimes it's really difficult to know exactly what to say, and if you don't say the right thing to the right person, your query might not be resolved, but we're very good. We know what we're saying and who we're saying it to. So we provide full support with any mediation if there are any problems that arise or queries that arise. We can provide support with pension providers. So if there's something on your pension provider or your portal that you're not quite understanding, we can provide technical support. We can get in touch with your provider and try and find out if there's a better way of doing things. We can even help you with the portals themselves and much more if you pay for the enhanced service. Issuance of letters. So as I mentioned, one of your duties is information. We can help you by uploading these letters to BrightPay Connect for you as soon as they are needed. As I said, we'll be tracking your duties, so we'll also be tracking when letters are needed to be sent to your employees. These letters are the standard templates that are available on the regulator's website, but it's much easier if it's just in one central place, and we can make sure that it is all there with the payslips and the P60s. We will also provide you with annual statements. So we'll prepare the statement on an annual basis by default, but if you would like it more regularly, we can also arrange that. What this statement is it's basically a checklist of all the actions that we've taken to make sure that you're compliant within a given year, followed by just a small column for you, which is where you just confirm the date that you've actually discussed with your employees, which is the information part again, what their duties are, what the pension scheme is. Generally, this is something that you should be doing when you're inducting new staff anyway, but just a 5-10 minute part of one of your team meetings once a year just to talk about the pension scheme, the fact it's not changed, how it's performing maybe. You can just include that, and that means that you're fully compliant, and this annual checklist will help you to track those actions so that you've got a central audit log. On that checklist as well, we'll also include the dates of any payment schedules that we can see. If you don't use the filing service but use the enhanced, we might need access to your scheme just to be able to do that for you. Both of these services can be used independently, by the way, so if you want one but not the other, we can absolutely do that. Having a central audit log of all your pensions actions is quite useful because it means that you're not having to then go and find things in a lot of different locations, because we've been doing it for you month to month, so we're able to actually provide that for you as well. Finally, with the enhanced service, we can provide you with assistance and support with more complex pension scheme setups. So if you're looking at getting something put in place that perhaps benefits your earners in a different way, we can provide you with this as part of the enhanced filing service for no extra charge. And we can also help you look at potentially looking at different schemes for different people. So that is something that is included in the enhanced service if you are interested. Now for the important bit. How much does it cost? So the pensions filing service is £3 per eligible employee. Anyone who's exempt from paying pensions is not included in that cost, and we are reviewing our fees on a monthly basis. So if the fee goes up or down, it's related to the fact that we've assessed your account properly and we've actually had a look there. Eligible employee also includes opt-outs. So if you do have 7 members of staff and 2 opt out, we still charge you for 7 members of staff because there's still actions that we need to do every month for those 7 people to make sure that everything is filed correctly. For the enhanced service, we've changed the structure slightly. So it's £10 per month, which covers your first 10 employees, and then it's £1 per employee over that. So if you've got 7 employees, it's £10 per month, but if you've got 12 employees, it's just £12 per month, very similar to the way it was priced before. We've changed the fee on the enhanced service just slightly because we feel like this better reflects the benefit that is transferred, but also because it just means then that we can guarantee that we can provide that level of support for all staff. We review our fees on an annual basis, so these may be subject to change in the future, but these are the fees as they currently stand. If you are interested in joining either the filing service or the enhanced service, please get in touch with payroll and we'll be more than happy to start that conversation with you. All of this is designed to give you compliance with confidence. These, however, are the 3 cardinal rules. These are the things that we can't do for you 100%. So you do need to make sure that you are doing at least the 3 cardinal rules, which is firstly, make sure your duties are covered either by outsourcing it to someone else or by making sure that you've done your duties yourself for the deadline. Plus, we can't physically be there to have a conversation with your team members. So you do need to make sure you have that conversation when they onboard, or just have that conversation once a year, just to make sure everyone's aware the pension scheme's there, it's ticking along, and they can talk to people about choices. Similarly, make sure that your payroll is up to date and filed on time. Also, make sure your payroll is appropriately linked to your pension. So if anything doesn't look quite right, make sure you tell us as soon as possible so that we can get it fixed. And then finally, and perhaps the most important one, which is where people fall off, is payments. Always make sure you pay your pension on time. I cannot stress this enough. It's the one thing that we can't do for you. If you give us permission to work on your behalf for the filing service, we'll make sure that the direct debit is there and it's going to be taken. But if anything happens to that payment, we need to then come back to you. If you are having a month where things are a little bit tight and you need to prioritize things, prioritize your pension payment over any other thing that you can, because this is where the regulator generally gets involved and we need to make sure that it's all done. But if you do these 3 simple things, you will have compliance with confidence, and we're here to help you and make sure that you're aware of at every step of the way. You'll never get to a point in the month where the payment side will be a surprise, for example, because we'll always make sure that we inform you to the best of our ability what is due and when it needs to be paid. Now, with pensions, there are some things that are additional. We've prepared some new materials, which I will make sure we circulate after this webinar. So these are just 2 examples, which are quite common. So transfers between providers, this isn't covered in either of our services. Now, you should consider switching your pension scheme if it's not performing particularly well. The scheme that you started with when you started your business and you had to do the automatic enrolment duties might not be appropriate for your staff now. You might have a high proportion of higher earners, for example, or you might have chosen a net pay arrangement when actually your staff would benefit more from relief as source. Definitely consider and definitely look on a fairly regular basis just to see like what's available and what could potentially give your staff a better benefit. Also talk to your staff about it, because sometimes you might have a pension scheme which is great on paper, but it's actually an absolute pain to log into and actually access and do anything with. So if you do choose to switch, we can offer a transfer facilitation service. But we require you to be available for at least 2 meetings during that period, and it does come with a one-off fee of £300. And the reason why we need the 2 meetings is because, as I said, we can do everything that's in our control, but there are certain things that are outside our control, which we absolutely need your help with. So that's why we require at least 2 meetings during that period. Similarly, if you've got a Royal London scheme, you may have noticed you should be being nagged around about this time of year to complete your annual survey. We can help you with this, and we can complete this annual survey for you for a charge of £5 per employee. If you require any additional information from the payroll service in order to complete these yourself, please get in touch and we can provide you with a report from BrightPay, customised with the fields that you need it to have on it. Finally, if you've got it handled because you're pretty confident doing it yourself, Absolutely no problem. As I mentioned when I was talking about the filing service, we'll make sure that your payroll is as legally compliant as it can be at all times. So we will make sure that the required duties of us are always fulfilled so that you can then go forward and just feel like, you know what, we've got it here, guys. So even if you are doing it yourself, we will support you as to the greatest extent that we possibly can. We're about to move on to Emma's bit, which is the BrightPay Connect section. But just to cap off on pensions, if there are any questions related to pensions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We're more than happy to help. I know that's been kind of the theme of the webinar, but we do want you to get in touch with any queries that you have. The inbox is monitored daily, and we will make sure we get back to you as quickly as possible. But now I'm going to hand it over to Emma for the BrightPay section.
Hello, everyone. So these are the bits that we're going to just be going through in relation to BrightPay. So we've got the payroll entry, just a bit of a recap of everything that we want or need. The reports section of BrightPay, which some of you may or may not be familiar with, as well as the payments to Hmrc section and the annual leave function. Next slide. So first of all, we want you to do just a little recap on the BrightPay process, just to ensure that everyone's comfortable with it and you know what you're doing. We also, obviously, we have a whole new payroll team, so we appreciate that the way we have adopted and the process we've adopted may not be what you was used to before. So we just wanted to ease any confusion on that front too. So you need to add any new starters or leave dates for anyone that's leaving in any given month to the entry request. Make any changes such as salary increases, additions, deductions, and there is a video on the next slide which will basically talk you through how to do any of that if you're unsure. If there is any changes that you don't know how to make because it's a calculation that you don't know how to do or anything like that, then you can just leave a comment as detailed as you possibly can, and we'll do all that for you. And then the emphasis for us is really on this last step here, to mark all as complete and then select I'm finished. As it says, this is how we know that you finished and you're ready for us to move forward with the payroll process. I know some of you make changes or leave comments as you go throughout the month. So this is just the best way of confirming that you're ready for us to prepare the payroll. Is the sound not working? So obviously it wouldn't be a webinar without some sort of technical issue. So there is voiceover to this video, but it doesn't seem to be working. So I am just showing you through how to make the changes at the moment. So here I'm just showing you if you want to do a salary increase, you would just change the monthly pay amount, and that would then carry forward into the next month. If you had anyone with overtime or anything like that, then you can add that in the hourly pay. And then the daily pay option, so if someone has a day off sick and that's going to be unpaid, you can just do a -1 in the daily pay. And then next would be the additions. So for any bonuses, commission, holiday pay, if someone is leaving and they are owed holidays that they've accrued, you can add those in there. And then the deductions, there's not actually much in that list, but these lists are customizable. So if there's anything you ever don't see in that list but you need, then just drop us a comment and we can add that in. And then you just mark as complete and save. So when you go back to the employee list, you can see those ones you've completed are in green and ticked. So then the little toggle at the top to mark all as complete, which I'm sure you're all probably familiar with by now, and then click the I'm finished button. So like I said, that's when we will then get the notification from BrightPay to say this payroll is here and it's ready for us to process. So not only should this kind of establish the process for you all, but being able to make the changes and stuff like that yourself is also really positive, as we want you to feel empowered when doing the payroll and understand where or how certain changes are made. It also means you've got a better ability to check the payroll when we return it for approval, rather than just always trusting that we're doing it right. So the next tab is the reports. So the net pay report that we upload to the documents section for you each month can actually be accessed from this reports section at any time, as well as various other reports. There is quite a lot on there as standard, but we can create reports for you, or any of the reports that are on there already can be customized too. Whether that's adding columns, removing columns, anything like that. And you can also go back to previous tax years. So because BrightPay has a different software for each tax year, it is all shown separately. So just with the little drop down in the right corner, it will show the most recent tax year when you're on that page. And just from that drop down, you can then go back to previous ones if there's any historic information you need to access.
Bear with me, I'm just getting the presentation to bring this up again.
Maybe just try refreshing on the browser, Stephen.
We got this far without any difficulties.
It was when the video stopped playing, it just didn't want to cooperate. Okay.
There we go. So the next one, yeah. So next is the Hmrc Payments tab. You can access this from the options along the top of your screen, or from when you're at your dashboard. Where it has the Hmrc liability, you can then click further into that. So at first you'll see a screen with each month listed and the liability for that month. If you click into each month, you'll then get this breakdown. So you can just see literally every item of your P30, and you can download that from there. You can see the little export button in the top right. And when you export that, at the very bottom of the document, it also has all the payment details and the period specific references to HMRC. So, I mean, you should always receive the email from us confirming that anyway, but if you ever lose the email or you just want to confirm, then this is a really handy way to just be able to access that. And then last but not least is the annual leave calendar. Hopefully this video works. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but BrightPay does have an annual leave function where employees can request to book and cancel annual leave from their self-service login, as well as view their remaining entitlement. So from your dashboard, at the bottom, you can see there's an upcoming section, which that will basically tell you for the next week or month or so who's off on what dates. And then I think the video should go to the calendar tab. So this is where when you go to the calendar, it's just an all overview of when people are off. So you can see that in December, for example, there's a lot of dates with 1 dot, which means there's 1 person off, and then there's some more dates with 2 dots. And when you hover over those dates, it'll tell you who is off, and it'll also say whether it's a full day or a half day. So this is just a good place to go to if someone requests annual leave and you want to double check how many people are off that day, if you've got the capacity to allow for it, then this is really useful. So we're just going into the employees tab and then just kind of showing it you from their point of view and what it is that they see. So you can see that they have the calendar in the bottom corner, which it just shows the current month that you're in, but you can then click further into it. So then they can see a more broad overview, but it will just show up any current leave that they've got booked. And underneath it also tells them the amount of days that they've got booked and remaining. And then if they just click into add leave, then you can just do a simple request. And that will then come through to your dashboard to approve or reject it. So that's everything. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. But if you are interested in getting the annual leave calendar set up, then obviously then we can have a more in-depth conversation of what we need and provide you with everything that we need to get set up.